Over the past 4 years, the second step on the podium in Paris has been the preserve of two men. Cadel Evans stood here in 2007 and 2008. Andy Schleck took over for 2009 and 2010. By the end of today, one of them will have earned the right to move slightly left and crucially upwards. Andy Schleck is on the top step as things stand, having taken the yellow jersey yesterday for the first time in his career. The question is, can he keep it in today's time trial? Well, the best way to read the standings coming into stage 20 is as a handicap listing. Andy Schleck sets off with a head start of 53 seconds over his brother Frank and 57 over his big rival Cadel Evans. Thomas Voeckler is fourth after leading the race for 10 days. He's 2 minutes 10 off the lead, less from a place on the podium, and he'll have the combined lung capacity of the French population by way of a tailwind. Damiano Cunego is fifth at 3:31, Alberto Contador sixth at 3:55. Then it's Samuel Sanchez and Ivan Basso at 4:22 and 4:40. So the race for the podium is open, but the battle for the top step should come down to the men who are currently first and third. Evans is the better time trialist. In 2007, he trailed Alberto Contador by 1:50 going into the time trial and got all but 23 seconds of it back to lose the race by the second smallest margin in Tour history. The following year, he needed 1:34 on Carlos Sastre. It looked more achievable, but he pulled back only 29 seconds to be runner-up again. Schleck has been working on his time trialling, but that's because his time trialling needs work. In 2009, he lost 1:45 to Alberto Contador against the clock, and the race overall by more than 4 minutes. Last year, though, he surprised everyone, conceding only 31 seconds to Contador in the final time trial and losing the Tour itself by 39. Now here's the course which is going to decide this year's Tour de France, a 42.5 kilometre loop starting and finishing in Grenoble. And since there was no prologue this year, those kilometres are the only ones of individual time trialling during the entire race. The course does have a couple of hills on it, which means a couple of descents, and as predicted yesterday, the organisers have put in an extra time check to go with the ones on the map. They're at 15, 27.5 and 37 kilometres. It's exactly the same time trialled course as in the Dauphiné in June, but after 3,300 kilometres of racing, even those who've ridden it before won't have the same legs. Now, 3 of the 4 British riders left in the race were among the early starters. Ben Swift missed his start time, so he didn't trouble the scorers. Mark Cavendish rolled around gently, saving his legs for one last sprint on the Champs-Élysées. Only David Miller was really going for it, but after a hard tour, he was only 9th as he finished. The best early time was set by Thomas again to Vacansoleil, 57 minutes and 2 seconds, just 1 second ahead of Saxo Bank's Richie Porte. But out on the course, Tony Martin, who won the Dauphiné time trial 6 weeks ago, had been setting the best times by huge margins at all the intermediate checks.
200 metres to go for Tony Martin, 55.27. He won't be quite as quick as he was when he rode in the Continuum in the Dauphiné, but it'll be a déjà vu because he will go top of the leaderboard by a long way today. 55.33 is the best time for Tony Martin, and that is going to take some beating. Dancing through the crowd here as they shout in his ear, and many of them come from Luxembourg. The champion of Luxembourg of years gone by was Charlie Gaulle. He was the man where the phrase was coined, the angel of the mountains. We're looking at the 3-time winner of the Tour now, riding unusually from the 6th position, starting in the time trial. For the last couple of years, he started the last man in that maillot jaune.
That's a great performance at the first time check, though, Phil, by Alberto Contador. He went through second best time at 21 seconds, but it's an indication that he's starting to get the form back down towards the end of the Tour.
Alberto Contador has climbed 1 place overall. He's gone from 6th up to 5th with his ride at the moment. We're looking at comparisons here now, and Cadel Evans is within 27 seconds of yellow.
Well, I tell you what, Frank Schleck has already lost half a minute to Cadel Evans. He just went through the first time check there, Phil, in 21.07. So Cadel currently is up into 2nd place. He will very shortly be looking at the yellow jersey.
Contador has gone through the 3rd check now, and he is in 2nd place still, 50.46.
Oh, and he nearly lost it when he went over that speed bump there, and he's taking all kinds of risks. But, you know, the gap between Contador and Tony Martin at that time check, Phil, was a huge gap, almost the 1 minute mark 53 seconds to be exact. But it's a good ride, this, a good show of defiance by this man who's already overtaken Damiano Cunego in the overall standings, and now he's starting to line up the position of Thomas Vogler.
King of the Mountains 2011 drives up the straight. He finished 4th in the Tour de France last year. As he comes up, he's given this his best shot. He wants to consolidate what he's got. He's chasing the position of Alberto Contador. I don't think that's possible. It'll be a 7th place overall finish tomorrow for Samuel Sanchez as he comes in there with a terrific time and a 5th place.
Well, if you're not careful, it may well be a 6th place overall for him, because he could very well overtake Damiano Cunego, who's losing huge chunks of time out on the course. Frank Schleck now, Phil, is coming up to that 2nd point out on the course, and he's lost 1 minute and 50 seconds at this point to Tony Martin.
So Frank Schleck goes through the 2nd checkpoint with 42.16 was his time there.
Back to the big duel, though, between Cadel Evans and Andy Schleck, the last rider to start this afternoon. He had the confidence. He looked fresh at the end of the stage yesterday to the summit of the Alpe d'Huez, but he must have wondered what could he do against this man machine, because I think we're looking at man machine Cadel Evans here this afternoon. Everything has gone right for him throughout this season. None of the bad luck that he's been dogged with in the past, and everything is being put on the line here this afternoon.
Contador now comes up towards the finish. The best time of Thomas de Gent on the board is 2nd best time. He's aiming at that. He's going to get in the 2nd place finish in the time trial. Only pipped by Tony Martin, 56.38 for Alberto Contador. Now that just tells us the man is back. Is he good enough for a podium in Paris? As the clock continues to count now towards the finish at this next checkpoint for Andy Schleck. This is going to be a big one for him. The gap you see of +148 is based on Tony Martin. We're interested on the gap on Cadel Evans. He goes through with a time of 42.15. Paul, he is 1 second slower than his brother Frank. He's 2 minutes 18 behind Cadel Evans. His charge is on now as he heads towards that final checkpoint. He's gone through the last checkpoint with the 2nd best time, just 2 scant seconds slower than Tony Martin. And he's gone quicker and quicker and quicker. If he keeps it up, he must win the time trial as well. Now Thomas Vogler deserves 4th place, but will the time say he will keep 4th place as he races up towards the line? Look at his face. How many times, Paul, have we seen this face twisted in pain this last 2 weeks?
Well, this is the best time trial that Thomas Vogler has ever ridden in his career. It's his best Tour de France, and it's his best season as well, as he stops the clock there with the 12th best time. He's lost 2:13 over Tony Martin, but that's not what he was concerned about. It was everybody else in this bike race.
If he had looked over his shoulder, he might just have seen Cadel Evans lining up on him, because Cadel Evans was inside 500 meters to go when Thomas Vogler crossed the finishing line, and Vogler started 3 minutes ahead of him. Here he comes, swinging into the home straight, and as he lines up for that home straight finish now, this is the winning ride of the Tour de France. Bet your boots on it, as Cadel Evans of Australia makes history today. Look at the crowd, and there's thousands of Australians here, let me remind you, as he grits his teeth and pulls for Australia. Cadel Evans cannot be beaten now. He is over 1 minute to the good. He has absolutely slaughtered his opposition in just 42.5 kilometers of racing. His time is 55.40. It's 2nd best on the day. He shrugs his shoulder, but he's won the Tour de France. Well, Frank Schleck is heading for home now. His time will not make pleasant reading. It'll be about 2¼ minutes slower than the time of Cadel Evans. And if Frank Schleck doesn't do 59 minutes and 41 seconds, but he will, he would have lost his place to Alberto Contador. But that won't apply, that little statistic, because Frank Schleck is coming on in towards the finish now as 58 minutes ticks away.
Well, I tell you what, we might have been a little bit derogatory about his time trialing ability. He's actually matching his own teammate there, Maxime Montfort, in the ride up to the line, and Maxime Montfort was once national champion of Belgium. That's probably, I reckon that's a good ride by Frank.
He's pulled out a great ride at 58.14 for his known ability. 19th time on the day, and well inside the time he requires to hold a podium place in Paris. So Frank Schleck has done what he could do, and he's kept a podium place in Paris. And it looks to me as though the Schlecks will be standing alongside Cadel Evans in 2nd and 3rd. The Maillot Jaune, which started with so much confidence today, he had hoped the magic of the yellow jersey would have brought him victory tomorrow in Paris. The magic hasn't worked on this occasion. but one of the most popular men in the world of cycling is racing home to close down this incredible stage of the Tour de France, which has seen an Australian get the final yellow jersey to ride to Paris in tomorrow. Andy Schleck comes in. His brother recorded 58.14, and he's come in marginally quicker in 58 minutes and 11.7.
That was a great ride by Andy and Frank Schleck. They're not great time trialists. We knew that was their Achilles heel, but I think reflected by a superb ride by Cadel Evans, doing probably one of the best individual time trials that we've seen him ride over the last few years. And that win in that second place will be transferring him into a yellow jersey at the end of the day.
The end of the day was the end of Andy Schleck's one day in the yellow jersey, suffocated by unwanted attention at the finish line and beaten by a better, faster Cadel Evans, who rather took the drama out of this most dramatic of tours by powering round the course to turn a 57-second deficit into a 1:34 margin of victory. And before he'd had the chance to pull the jersey on, he was already being obliged to service the corporate memorabilia market behind the podium. Here's the stage result then. Tony Martin, for the second time in 6 weeks over this circuit, wins. Cadel Evans only 7 seconds away from the stage win himself. Alberto Contador faded after a blistering start. He was third at 1:06. Thomas de Gent was fourth, Richie Porte fifth, Jean-Christophe Perrault sixth, Samuel Sanchez seventh and Fabien Cancellara eighth. Rein Taaramäe was 10th but couldn't gain enough time on Pierre Rolland to take the white jersey. Thomas Voeckler was 13th and didn't take enough time from Frank Schleck to make the podium. Andy Schleck lost 2 minutes 38 to the stage winner, 2:31 to Cadel Evans. Frank Schleck was 3 places and 3 seconds behind him. So here are the standings as they'll be entering Paris tomorrow, and barring a bit of minor shuffling down the order, they'll stay that way. Cadel Evans is Australia's first Tour winner by 1:34 from Andy Schleck, who makes it a runners-up hat-trick. And with Frank in third, the Schlecks will be the first ever brothers to stand on the Tour podium together. Thomas Voeckler should be given his own platform to stand on. He has to be content with 4th and national hero status. Alberto Contador moved up to 5th with his ride today. Samuel Sanchez moved up to 6th. The pair of them leapfrogging Damiano Cunego and Ivan Basso, who slipped to 7th and 8th.